everyone, so today I thought I'd talk about some tips or steps on going vegan and some of the things that worked for me and helped me make the big change to veganism. So tip number one is to educate yourself and reaffirm the reason why you want to go vegan. I think this is really important because if you know your why, then essentially everything will fall into place and it will make everything so much easier. So if you educate yourself on what goes on in the industries, then it'll just overall be easier for you to navigate yourself through a non-vegan world. And this helped me, so I watched a load of documentaries, I watched YouTube videos by activists like Joey Carbstrong and Earthling Ed, and some of the documentaries I watched were Earthlings, Land of Hope and Glory, Dominion, Game Changers, Cowspiracy. All of these documentaries helped me to reaffirm my reason why I want to go vegan. And sometimes I go back to these documentaries and watch them again, so I keep on track and I remember that there's a bigger issue than a sensory pleasure that you get out of your food. So tip number two is that you don't have to go vegan overnight. And I stress vegan because there's a whole confusion going around veganism, as people think that it's just some sort of diet that you know go on for weight loss, and people forget about the animal suffering and the clothing aspect of it and the cosmetics and how animal products are used for those too, like leather, wool and all sorts of products. So you don't have to go vegan overnight. Focus on being plant-based, which is the food aspect, so getting rid of meat, dairy, eggs, cheese, all of that, and then you can go on to not buying any animal products like or clothing like leather and wool or cosmetics that have been tested on animals and are not vegan, so make sure to avoid them. Tip number three is get into the habit of carefully checking labels. So for food, obviously that's meat, dairy, eggs and honey. They're the four main things you should be looking out for. But then there's sort of like the whole vitamins section. You need to make sure that there's no animal derived ingredients in there. So I know for me, I take vitamin D in the winter because I don't get enough sun, and I bought vitamin D and didn't know that there was one ingredient in there that was actually something like sheep's wool, and I didn't know that, and I was consuming it even as a vegan. But then when I found out, then I took it away and educated myself, learned that it's not vegan, and found one that was vegan. And I didn't know that, for example, supplements can be vegan or not. I didn't even know that. I knew that there could be like milk or fish oils or something obvious like that. But I think when you're checking labels and you see that there's an animal derived ingredient in there, then you should stop consuming it. I think the problem is when people consciously know that they're consuming it even though they know that it's not vegan. I think that's where the problem starts. And yeah, so if you educate yourself on all these ingredients, and there are apps for this, then it'll make your life so much easier. Tip number four is to use transitional foods when you become vegan. So stuff like plant-based sausages, burgers and cheeses and milks. There's a whole lot now. Every year they come up with so many new ones and come out with so many new ones, and use those, and then once you transition to those foods, then transition to more healthier foods like more fruits, more vegetables, to get more of the nutrition aspect covered. Because as much as those plant-based sausages and cheeses are so nice, they're not the most nutritionally beneficial foods to be eating. So yeah, that's what I would say. Tip number five is to download Happy Cow and VegSafe. And I think I've already mentioned these apps in other videos, but these apps are great. So Happy Cow to find vegan restaurants, so you just filter out vegan and you can find all the vegan restaurants and places to eat around you. It's really good. And then there's VegSafe, which you can check for, you know, those E numbers, those unclear sort of animal derived ingredients that you might not know about. And also it covers clothing, materials and cosmetics, so it just shows you the vegan ones and the non-vegan ones. Tip number 6 is to reconnect in some way with the animals, so that can be either going to a sanctuary, watching more documentaries, more YouTube videos, and reminding yourself of the animals, because that's essentially why people go vegan. I know there's a lot of people that go vegan for health reasons or environmental reasons, and that's great, but I think we should keep the focus on animals, because they're essentially going through more than us, you know, they're going through an animal holocaust. And this can include like following people that think like you, so people like animal activists and stuff that will motivate you to continue being vegan. And by reminding yourself of their suffering, then you can make sure that you're vegan for the right reasons. And the last tip number 7, is to educate others on veganism. I think people should not be scared of or anxious of bringing up veganism. I think the more discussions we have, the more progress can be made. So if you bring up why you became vegan and stuff that they can maybe watch, and you never know, they may change their minds and go vegan, because we've all been so culturally conditioned to eating one way and thinking one way, that if you introduced some other way of thinking, then that can actually be really beneficial for a person that's only seen that one way of thinking, you know, eating meat, wearing leather and all that. So the main thing to take away from this video is to educate yourself, and everything else will fall into place once you've educated yourself. And then once you've done that, then you can educate others and spread the message. So thank you for watching my video. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more content, and remember that one by one we can make a difference. Bye guys.